Welcome to NASDAQ Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at NASDAQ. Joining me at the market site in Times Square, we have Steve O. He's the head of ETF product and listings over at NASDAQ. We also have Leo Schmidt. He's a CFA and also chair of the Institutional Asset Management Group at the CFA Society in New York City. Now, NASDAQ, in conjunction with the CFA Society of New York City, we're holding our Synapse 2019 ETF Industry Conference, bringing together the top thought leaders across the spectrum within the ETF space. Steve, Leo, thanks so much for joining me at MarketSite. Now, I love covering Synapse. Please tell us about the exciting ETF conference taking place in New York City, November 22nd.
Thank you, Jill, for those kind words. So NASDAQ and the CFA Society of New York are proud to present 2019 Synapse, the ETF Educational Conference, to be held at the CFA Society of New York headquarters in the crossroads of the world, Times Square, New York. And we're going to have a great day full of top ETF minds, ETF content, a full day on November 22nd. And anyone who wants to learn about ETFs, you're going to have a great opportunity to do so by joining us.
Yeah, I love it that you always have academia there. Now, Leo, give us some background on the CFA perspective of the event and why you're excited to work with NASDAQ and our ETF.
Well, there's a lot of things there. So the CFA Society has been around for 80 years. It was founded by Ben Graham, who taught, forgetting his name now, but Mr. Buffett. And it's been around for 80 years. We were the original society. There's 11,000 members. We create content events that happen every week. We are pretty much filled from now to January. And the idea is to create content that our members can like.
All right. Now, Steve, who's going to be attending and what are some of the topics we can look forward to?
Sure. I mean, we're chock full of a great agenda. So maybe first I'll start off with the agenda. We're going to go from academic research topics. We're going to talk about ETF liquidity to a Q&A from a hodgepodge of great ETF minds to talking about the future of ETFs as well. As we all know, the ETF space has been growing very quickly. There's been a lot of coverage in the space, and I think people want to know, like, what's going on in the ETF industry? What's the truth? How do I need to educate myself and prepare myself as a smart investor?
All right. Now, Leo, who should be attending this event?
So this should be for people who are very, experienced with ETFs and complete novices, and even people like me who are a bit skeptical. So I'm not a fan of ETFs, but I love that we have this content that we're understanding and knowing, because knowledge is the key, which is why we want to partner with NASDAQ, because information for the investor is the key thing for NASDAQ and for the CFA Society, that we all keep the investor informed, and that information helps you to become better investors and better marketplaces.
All right, now Steve, you and I attend multiple ETF conferences. How is Synapse different than the others we've experienced?
Sure. So the Synapse idea, just a word, even synapse, the etymology of that word, thinks about intelligence, around thinking, around education, really, ultimately. And so the idea of Synapse was, let's create something different, like not your standard everyday product and promotion conference, but let's really delve down into getting our hands dirty and talking about these topics, having the best thought leaders. We're going to have the best minds in the ETF industry coming from the top ETF issuers, all the top ETF issuers, thought leaders as well, and we're going to have a never before seen panel of some of the 7 top leaders in the ETF industry, and we're going to bring all of these people together in one day to really, to address all the important topics out there in the ETF industry, with the idea that this is about education. This is about empowering investors.
All right. Now, besides having Trade Talks cover the event, what section of the agenda are you most excited about?
That's a good one. That's going to be a tough one. But I would say that what I mentioned, that panel before, we're going to have, as I said before, 7 of the brightest minds in the ETF industry, well-recognized people, who are all over the place, individually promoting ETFs and really answering the tough questions regarding ETFs. And so bringing them together in one panel to answer questions and really throw out, what's happening in the industry. What do you need to know about the ETF industry? I'm looking forward to that.
All right, and Leo, I'll ask you the same question. What session of the agenda?
So what I like is an early panel we're having where we're having academic papers reviewed by business professionals, which should be pretty interesting, because I happen to feel that that's one of those links where academia and business kind of need to hook up.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one also. Now tell us more about ETF education and how this conference fits into the greater educational efforts being brought up by the CFA.
So this kind of evolved through a NASDAQ-sponsored event that we had last spring called Smart Beta versus Active Quant. And that was a really well-attended event. We evolved that to roundtables where people came in to discuss things. And then we're kind of jumping into the next step, which is now going to be a much bigger academic business conference all day. And one of the things I think is interesting about the ETF world is that the CFA Institute, which is sort of the world body, the global governing body, is going to add this to, was considering adding this to the CFA curriculum as part of that exam.
All right, now, Steve, of course, your educational efforts, it's one of the things you're spearheading here at NASDAQ for the ETF group.
Yeah, so partnering with an entity like the CFA Society is great. I mean, they're all about education and doing the right thing for investors. And I think there's alignment between what the CFA is looking for and what NASDAQ and myself personally, we're looking for as well. So the ETF industry has grown very quickly. We do have a lot of skeptics out there, and I think it's healthy to be skeptical about things that are getting a lot of press, a lot of attention, a lot of hype as well. And so the idea of coming together, I think we found a great partner in CFA to create a great event.
Well, NASDAQ is in a great organization because it's all about informing the investor, which is our mission. Educating the educated investor is a smart investor, and so that's what we try to do.
All right. Well, I, for one, am looking very forward to the event. Thank you so much for joining us at MarketSite, and thank you for joining me on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at NASDAQ.